Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. And thanks to DevOps Summit Canada 2022 and especially Garima Bajpai for giving me this opportunity to speak about the report that we have created out of a survey on new ways of working, along with Techstrong research. I am Niladri Choudhuri, the chief organizer for DevOps India Summit and DevOps Asia Summit. So we started off with this particular survey, keeping in mind that we find a lot of surveys being done on digital transformation, on various frameworks, on various products, but the focus is always on those customers, on those products. But the relationship between the customer and the service provider is not really highlighted. So this new way of working, it requires both the customer to change, the service providers to change. And from that point of view, we created this particular survey. We also know that business leaders are finding themselves in a very fast changing environment. Customers' experiences are changing, customers' requirements are changing, expectations are changing. At the same time, the technology is also changing very rapidly. Now, both has to collaborate together to achieve the value that needs to be created. And value is always co-created. It cannot be created by one. We need to look at a holistic approach and align the business strategy, leadership, team, and technology. People, process, technology must go hand in hand to achieve the common objective of the digital transformation. And we are today talking about the small t of transformation, that is evolutionary transformation, not the big bang transformations. So, without ado, let's look at the results that we got from the 1500 plus respondents who have answered our survey. We have broken this entire survey into 5 sections, and the report shows those 5 sections. So the first section that we see is drivers for business transformation. And this is where we see that transformation starts from the top and is driven by the need for operational improvement. That is what came out. The process is typically a 1 to 3 year that the respondents had mentioned. 65% of the respondents talked about 1 to 3 years is what they are looking at. So people are looking at still big bang transformations. 28% of the respondents said that process took more than 2 years. So we are not looking at the small t of transformation. We are still looking at the capital T of transformation, which is big bang. What we see is business transformation is driven from the top. So if you look here, the management is talking about customer experience, talking about the operational improvement and productivity, and then revenue growth in business verticals. So 54% of the respondents indicated that regular leadership engagement drives the organizational change methodology. Operational improvement, 52%, and customer experience, 57%. But if we dive deep and if we correlate with other questions, we come to a question mark on what does the respondents really mean by customer experience. Maybe new features is what they are talking about customer experience. Because down the line, the other KPIs do not corroborate with this claim. So from a time frame perspective, transformation efforts are taking 2 years, 3 years, and some taking lesser than that. Funding and skill constraints are hindering progress. So it is quite apparent that we always knew about funding shortage, but skill shortage is huge. So lack of in-house skills is the biggest constraint, which is 50%. to transformation efforts, followed closely by funding, which is 42%. Cultural challenges are next, which is around 37%. So culture and skills are together quite high. Funding obviously has always been there as a challenge, it still is. We saw that tracking the progress of transformation is through automated dashboards, but there's a large portion which is still doing around 40% on end of project meetings, individual one-to-one, progress meetings, management reviews. So we are not yet really looking at the outcome. What we see, the DORA accelerate metrics, service level objectives, these are popular items on the dashboard, but we are not correlating it to the business objectives. Allocating time to innovation, again, 50% of respondents indicated they allocate at least 25% of their time for innovation. Given the technical debt that most organizations need to deal with, as well as the new feature requests and the like, clearly there is a competing interest for scarce resource of enterprise. Now, if you look at it, you see 28%, 29% is saying that they spend around 16 to 25% in innovation, and 28% saying 26 to 50%. So if you look at lower side, 29 plus 19, which is around 38 and 7, around 45% are having 0 to 25% as the time spent on innovation. So there is not much time that is spent on innovation. Innovation requires experiments, requires hypothesis-based experiments. We don't see that down the line. And we also saw typically sustainability, people are thinking of it, but there is a long way to go still. Promising part is 40% indicate they are building carbon efficient or carbon neutral applications, and 30% of respondents are using green systems and green coding techniques. But if you really look at it, most of the organizations are looking at energy efficient hardware and hardware efficient applications. But if you look at creating architecture which is going to help in sustainability, choosing tools which are going to help, those areas, still there is a lot of improvement to happen. The second part is the technology enablement. So most organizations start evolving their development and computing platforms to prepare for the business transformation, embracing agile software development, open source software, cloud computing, etc. We found that to be the case from the data of the survey. There is no surprise here. Security is increasingly becoming strategic, with more proactive efforts helping to understand the impact of security issues on the transformation efforts. Compliance is still the main driver for security efforts, not just making the system reliable. So organizations continue to evolve and transform. Security will increasingly be viewed as a critical aspect of transformation effort. Now, here are certain interesting things that we see. We see that Amazon Web Service, AWS, goes all the way up. They are the most used. The next, more or less in the similar situation, is GCP, Google Cloud Platform, and Microsoft Azure. What is interesting to see is the smaller organizations are using DigitalOcean to a great extent. One important call out that we found in this is people have commented that they are moving away from multi-cloud to single cloud. Most probably the complexity of using a multi-cloud is much more than the benefit that people are getting as of now. So given the complexity of operating and securing multi-cloud, it's not surprising to see that the organization focuses are more from a specific cloud provider, not multi-cloud. What we also saw is that frameworks providing structure to transformation. People are using various things like ITIL, ITSM, Agile, DevOps, SRE, many things at the same time. And that raises the question that we see, while everything is related to achieving the single objective, common objective of delivering greater value to the customer, to the business, to the employees, what is happening is people are getting into using framework and creating framework silos. Same organization having practicing agile as a separate initiative, DevOps as a separate initiative, SRE as a separate initiative. That is not good. We need to break the silos of framework. We have heard about organization silos. We have heard about even technology silos, but now we have framework silos. When we ask the question about open source software, we see that yes, many are using open source tool chains. The next bigger one is homegrown solutions and then package vendors. We saw that security is becoming strategic, but it is again pushed mostly from the risk and compliance perspective. Then looking at the proactive vulnerability and consumer trust and brand value. So we see business leadership and CISO organization defining the security requirements. Compliance remains the top driver. However, two drivers, proactive vulnerability threat management and customer trust and brand value, are also coming up. But if you look at, are people taking it seriously? Are they really doing it? If you ask the question about how much of training is being given to the people on a regular basis to help them understand how to do secure work in their own respective areas, we see that mostly it is biannual or annual. Around 54% is biannual and annual together, or maximum quarterly, not a regular thing. That gives a big gap. So we see that security is again looked at as putting some tools. The third section is about the relationship between the customer and the service provider. This is the area which nobody is looking at, and we specifically looked at it because there are very, very few organizations across the globe who does their IT all by themselves. What we see in this is service providers are remaining to be a tactical. So what we saw, 50% is looking at getting only technical insights. 31% is only talking about strategic partnership. But again, the understanding of strategic down the line with the questions is not really strategic. They are implementing client strategies. So we see that organizations are being used or are using service providers mainly for their technical capabilities as implementers and not much as a strategic partner. The service provider is mostly seen as one who helps provide some technology insights once the strategy is defined and then implements the strategy already decided by the customer. So they are not part of the decision-making team in terms of business innovation. So they are perceived as skill partners, skills, not goal partners of transformation. So thus diluting their quality in contributing to leading practices and experiences they have gained from their experience working in multiple sectors on similar projects. So there is lack of skill gaps internally, which is leading to taking the service of service providers. And service provider employees are not getting much of an opportunity to improve their skills and capabilities. The aligned skills are minimal. Learning is highly focused on the subject matter of the project they work on. And only 40% of the respondents offered equal training to both their internal employees and service provider staff. And communication and information sharing is also limited between the customer and the service provider. So this again supports the position that service providers are not treated as strategic partners, but tactical technology providers. So conversely, 30% of the service providers share new technology related information. So when asked whether they share new technology related information, they also don't do it much, because they are always of the fear that if I share something with our customer may take that information and use it with some other service provider and we may lose out. So trust seems to be lacking on both sides and contribute to the view of service provider as a tactical resource. We know that transformation is a team sport and organizations are better suited to take one team approach for training and strategy definition, which includes not just internal resource, but also their extended network of advisors and service providers. This collaboration needs to happen. So there is immense amount of work that needs to be done from both the customer and the service provider front. Building the skills required to support transformation. So the lack of skill is not only with the customer, but also with the service providers. So they around 57% respondents are acquiring skills by new hiring, use of external consultants 36%, and service providers 29%. So given the fierce competition for individuals experienced in their business knowledge or technical skills, hiring and sourcing from providers is not a long-term solution. So the customer organizations have to go for upskilling the current workforce. Survey bears that only 61% of the respondents are looking to develop the skills internally through upskilling, training, and or education. So if you look at it, in this part also, one thing that calls out is there's a lot of focus on internal upskilling and training, on-the-job training, hiring new employees internally with external consultants, partnering with service provider. All those are there. But what is coming out is experimentation and hypothesis-based experimentation is not much being done. There's no clear preference. So structured training is 48%, certifications are there, sponsored trainings, but providing time and opportunity for experimentation is less. That really needs to improve, because as we said that everything is changing. We have to collaborate with our customers and together experiment on the basis of a hypothesis to deliver value to our customers. That requires experimentation. That requires that third principle of DevOps. We need dojos. We need hypothesis-based experimentation. So from this point of view, the recommendations that we have, one, focus on long-term value. Frameworks to guide transformation efforts like DevOps, DevSecOps, SRE, and BSM must be coordinated towards the common objective of delivering value to customer, to business, to employee via better quality services implemented faster and more securely. These are the short-term initiatives, rather a long-term investment in cultural shift, new tooling, and processes needs to be done. Expected return should be viewed within the prism, not based on short-term cost impact. Furthermore, the value delivered to the customer should be quantifiable to ensure progress towards a goal and to justify the investment in transformational efforts. So we need to break work into smaller pieces. We need to have evolutionary transformation, collaborative approach with the customer, hypothesis-based experimentation. We need to bring in all the frameworks and take what is best suited from all of them to deliver that value to the customer. We need to break down the silos of the organization. Everybody has to work in together, the developers, the testers, the infrastructure, network, database, security, compliance, everybody has to come together. A very good example, if you see, you will find in the new book by IT Revolution called Investments Unlimited. It really, in a story form, talks about this collaboration. And these are from real life experiences of the eminent authors. So this siloed approach also has to be broken, as I mentioned earlier. You have to break the framework silos. All are trying to achieve the same objective, so use all of them together. Whatever is essential, whatever is best to achieve the objective. This siloed approach results in slower acceptance of transformation efforts across the organization. So looking at transformation across the company can unlock synergies and present opportunities for leveraging to increase the value both customers and the organization. And that's why initiatives like Agile, DevOps, DevSecOps, SRE should not be separate initiatives. It should be all complementary to each other, trying to achieve the same objective. A very crucial role is of the service providers. We have to look at them as strategic partners from the customer's point of view. And service providers also have to gear up to be capable to be a strategic partner, not a technology vendor. So service providers still mostly providers of tactical enabling services, tools, and people. So service providers should be elevated to the level of strategic partner, helping organizations to deliver greater value to their customers by using their broad experience and transformation. Look for ways to ensure service providers have skin in the game and a clear incentive for successful outcome, not just billing hours. The commercial models has to change, and service providers have to upskill them, cross-skill them to be able to deliver that value. Because today, IT is no longer a cost center. IT is business. Security is very crucial, so it has to be an enabler. So strong security posture can enable more customer collaboration and allow the opportunity to share valuable information across the entire supply chain. Organizations should consider the business implications of security controls and ensure they are not adversely impacting the business process or user experience. So, security has to be baked in at every aspect of the entire life cycle. And as we are using service providers also has to integrate. They have to have people who are capable, who are knowledgeable on security aspects. They know how to do their part of the job in a secure manner. So as a developer, I need to write secure code. As a tester, I need to test security aspects. As an operations, we need to see how to make our production environment and other environments to be secure, because today the same CI/CD pipeline is extended to production. So only taking care of the production environment is not good enough. We need to take care of the entire pipeline. And we have to have a process of bringing everything together. We have to make sure that we are knowledgeable, we understand, we have the idea of the proper supply chain, the entire supply chain vulnerabilities. We have to look at all these aspects. And we need to look at our teams, look at our people. Human are not machines. They are not resources. They are capital. So we need to help them to be able to innovate, be able to develop and grow themselves. It's not just about how many lines of code somebody is doing or how many user stories they have been able to code. There has to be something in it for them itself. So innovation drives business transformation and results in competitive advantage. Organizations has to incentivize their employees and service provider employees to innovate and try new ways of working in service of the business goals. The mindset should expand beyond building to a continuous learning. So we change from a building mindset to a learning mindset. Employee retention depends on giving them the resource and the time for experimentation to upskill and learn new skills that will drive innovation. Now, these are some of the very important recommendations that we have put based on the callouts, based on the result that we saw of the survey. Hope this gives you all a good understanding and hope to see you all soon again. We have the DevOps Asia Summit coming up on the 10th of February, which is going to be hybrid with physical location in Singapore. So go to devopsasiasummit.com and register there. Call for speakers is open, sponsorship is open. Get involved in whichever way you can to learn more from the peers across the globe. With this, I end my session. Thanks again to DevOps Summit Canada and specifically Garima Vajpayee. Thank you.